Awesome.
This up. Well, then he should read the mission, shouldn't he?
You want to do the mission?
You gotta call it to order, I think.
We're going to let's reconvene the budget meeting and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Betsy, would you like to read the mission statement?
I would. This is just a comment because we hopefully are going to approve the budget tonight if we get to that point. And I just wanted to remind us all that we're trying to create a budget that will help us fulfill the mission, which is educating each student to the highest standards while motivating them to reach their fullest potential and graduating to college career and life ready. So as we approve these numbers and talk about these numbers, let's keep that in mind, that this budget is supposed to help us fulfill a better life for our students.
I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the May 5th minutes. That are attached in the packet.
I motion that we accept the minutes from the May 5th, 2026 budget meeting.
I ask for a second.
I'll second that.
Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, at this time, I would like to turn the time over to Dan.
I have a question before we begin the review, and that came up today. Do we have a member on this budget committee from our Education Equity Advisory Committee? Who is that person?
So that was a requirement in the past,
Yeah.
but when they updated the rules to equity advisory committees, it's no longer a requirement that you have one on your budget committee.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Had a few things I wanted to go over before we continue the review and answer some of the questions that came up at the last meeting and since. So I wanted to emphasize, go to the next slide, please. So you all have this slide. I just wanted to emphasize just how much of our budget goes to people. Circled parts on this slide all represent people. So in the upper left, we have payroll costs, represented by the purple area on the chart. In the top right, we have all of our people who are employed by the district, whether classified, licensed, or administrative. That's the blue part of the chart. And then the top 5 items circled in the box over on the right, that's a portion of the red part of the chart. All that adds up to 73% of our budget. And that doesn't even represent the whole picture because we have services that we receive through the Educational Service District, for instance, our tech department. And if we weren't receiving those services through the tech department of the ESD, we would have to hire those people and pay for them ourselves. So the real number is probably closer to 80%. And the next thing I wanted to emphasize is just how much PERS costs us. It's the very top left number on this slide, over $8 million, 12.5% of our budget. And aside from the salary items, it's the single largest line item in our budget. So we'll move on to some of the open items from the last meeting. One of the questions was about the fuel budget in the transportation department. So I looked into that. One of the budget committee members was concerned that it wasn't large enough. So that's near the bottom of page 100, if you want to take a look at that. And if you look, it's close to the bottom. Item 414 over on the left. If you look, our actuals for the prior 2 years were $113,000 and $114,000. I still hear pages turning. Make sure everybody gets there. Last year, $170,000 was budgeted, and based on what I was seeing at the time, I put $150,000 into that line item. And because of the war in the Middle East, we had a budget committee member who thought that was going to be inadequate, so I did some analysis on that. Projected at current fuel prices, we're going to end up spending $143,000 for fuel. We buy approximately $44,000 of fuel every year for our transportation department. So that's versus our $170,000 budget, which means that we're going to underspend that by $27,000 this year, and those funds will carry over to next year. So in addition to the $150,000 that I put in the budget, that's $177,000. If gas prices stay right where they're at today, we'll spend close to $220,000 on fuel next year. Nobody knows if they're going to go up or down. You know, they tend to spike quickly and then come down more slowly over time. But I decided that I would leave that line at $150,000. If we spend $220,000 and we have a $177,000 budget, that's a gap of $43,000. But what does not come out in this slide is that we get reimbursed. So, next slide, please. Most of our transportation expenses are reimbursed at 70% as part of the state school fund. So that $43,000 gap shrinks to a little under $13,000, which is 0.02% of our budget. And historically, we underspend our budgets in more areas than we overspend them. These are all estimates. We're going to come in high on some, we're going to come in low on others, and we tend to come in low on more than we come in high on. So I don't think it's crazy to leave that where it's at. The next open item on the next slide was that we had 2 FTE showing up in the superintendent slot. So I dug into our ERP system, and I found this random line with just a vacant position on it, but it has 1 full FTE assigned to it. It's not a real person, no dollars are associated with it, so it's just a phantom number in the budget. I talked to our payroll person today about it, and she couldn't really figure out where it came from. I can't really figure out where it comes from, so we'll try to make that go away for next year. Next open item. So I went down a bit of a rabbit hole on this one. There were a number of questions about spending at different schools. What I figured out, it seems that positions get moved around in the district. Sometimes they're reflected in the payroll system, sometimes they're not. So I decided to just take a global look at spending for the whole district. In our 25-26 budget, we have just under $7 million budgeted, and for 26-27, we have about 10% more, $7.56 million budgeted. which when you think about the payroll increases that we have and inflation in general, I think that's a pretty reasonable number. And then another thing came up, another budget committee member emailed me. She was looking at the middle school athletics budget, and I'm not entirely sure how it happened, but basically nothing got entered into the middle school athletics budget. So this is something that we're going to have to fix. I dug into Oregon budget law a little bit, and under section 294 and so forth, you can adjust the budget prior to approval, prior to adoption, but after approval, as long as the adjustment is less than, you have to love the legalese here, less than the greater of $5,000 or 10% of the budget, which is the case here. So we'll be making that adjustment before we adopt the budget. And that was all of the open items from last week, so now it's time to move on and ask more questions.
The floor is open for questions.
Say again?
The floor is open for questions.
Yes.
Okay. Back to the transportation. I guess the question I had around it, and I think it sounds like it'll work out the way you explained it, but like, is there a percentage increase in fuel costs that we can absorb before we need to start adjusting the activity that we conduct?
Just because of the way it's appropriated, if fuel costs are coming in insanely high next year, if they don't, come back down to something like they were before, or even, they could even be, 20% higher than they've been historically, and they would still come in under our $150,000 budget. So if fuel costs stay at their current levels, then at some point we'll have to do either a resolution or a supplemental budget and adjust those numbers.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, 20% was kind of my gut feel on what. I don't foresee it going above 20% unless there's another geopolitical upset to upset the supply chain.
Yeah, and it's unpredictable, no way of knowing what it's going to do.
My question was, you talked about the 27,000 that was left over from the budget out of the 170 that you had. So let's say next year you have that 27 and prices come back down and you're still underneath your 150. Does that 27 plus whatever the extra is, does that just keep building in the fuel? Does that ever get dispersed out to other stuff? Or, you know what I mean? Because you said you got 27 left. You're thinking after this year, right?
Yeah, so if there continues to be money left, it'll just stay in the general fund and be spent on other things.
Okay.
Or if we don't spend it, contribute to our reserves in the future.
Okay. I see.
So a couple kind of funny questions. On page 105, the Administrative Board of Education, that's the Board of Directors, there is audit services. Do we pay for, does our budget pay for our financial audit? That's
Yes.
where we put that.
Absolutely.
10-4. And then page 118, I was looking at postage for some reason. And then I noticed that there was no postage value for 353. in the 26 budget, and so I was like, well, it must have gone somewhere else, but I couldn't find any postage anywhere else, so I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know if it's funny or if we're all going to be without stamps and sad, so can't mail anything.
So our data people have figured out how to send a lot of stuff out electronically without using postage. Might have to, part of the cause of the stories we're hearing about the postal service lately.
Or you have a meter and you put it in to something else.
Yeah, Director Aparicio is saying it shifted down to, what's that, the district-wide technology?
Where?
Oh yeah, page 119, about an inch from the top.
Right under telephone.
353.
No, that's last year's budget.
That's
There's
zero, still zero. Oh, it's probably in other communication services, right? Oh no, that's that technology. Anyway, I just thought that was curiosity. I don't think it's going to be a crisis, but it was a curiosity.
Yeah, I might have gotten put in other communication services because that budget was $250 last year and it's $7,500 this year.
Did we stop our run-through at the reserve funds? Where was our stopping point last time?
We're at federal grants. Federal grant.
And do you have any comment about the summary on page 131? There were some items that went to zero, some bigger change in Title 1A. Anybody have any commentary on the changes there? I mean, it still went up, but
The ones that went to zero is because those grants are no longer funded or available as a federal grant. So those remain at zero. A lot of the federal grants for 26, 27 are flat funded, and so not huge increases and or decreases across the board.
Do you have to apply for any of these?
No,
These are all just,
these are,
here comes your money.
uh-huh. We do have to provide assurances for all of our federal grants coming, which actually Dan, Dr. Ivy and I met yesterday, because Dr. Ivy oversees many of our federal grants. And we did have to meet yesterday to go through all the assurances, because you do have to submit assurances that you met all the criteria in order to spend the money.
So some admin time.
Yes.
Great.
Do you receive McKinney-Vento funding? I just didn't see it listed. We do, I believe McKinney-Vento is, it might be under state grants. Okay. Let's see. We do receive McKinney-Vento.
I think that's included in one of the titles, isn't it?
Let's see. Let me keep looking. We do receive McKinney.
It's federal.
I thought it was federal or state. I mean, we'll see where it's at.
How do you spell that?
McKinney Vento? McKinney, and then Vento, V as in Victor, ENTO.
And what's the purpose of that grant?
It's for your houseless youth.
Oh, because we do have that under 242 on the next page. Is that what that is? But it's Title 1A, so.
No, that's Title 1A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Homelessness, okay. So we do get that somewhere.
We do. Oh, yeah. So it's under, if you look on page 134, oh, that's under Title 1A, sorry. It may be embedded under Title 1A, but if you look on page 134, you can see our houseless service.
Yes, with the big jump there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noted that. And so that was a jump, is that, but again, it's a federal grant
Mhm.
that's given based on, is it based on a census?
Yep.
Homelessness, okay, yes,
Based on our data,
okay.
it did jump, and we employ a part-time person who helps us facilitate all of our services for our houseless youth and families experiencing houselessness.
Okay. Can someone help me understand what the Title 1A private school line items are for?
You're required by law to engage with our private school. So we engage with St. Mary's, and we're required to do a pass-through of Title I dollars to
Perfect.
our private school.
Thank
So
you.
every year on an annual basis, we're required to do a consultation with the private school. We talk about what their allocation is based on the required percentage, and then those dollars get passed through to them.
Is that our only private school?
Yeah.
Yes. That's the only one we're required to consult with.
Okay, they have to be a certain size or something like that.
Yeah, we have to meet certain criteria.
Dr. Brown, do you feel that this proposed budget will adequately sustain, or will see a decline or an improvement in academic performance, especially around literacy and math? And the second question to that is, is there any changes that for the future that you'd like that we'd be able to improve potentially for next year?
To answer the first question, yes, I believe our proposed budget will improve academic outcomes. There's a lot of plans we have in place for some intentional training of some of our employees to do Tier 2, Tier 3 intervention work with our students who are behind. Part of that's our high dosage tutoring program. So we're working on that and preparing that for next year. The second part, your second question?
Yeah, the second question was, what improvements to the budget for next year should we aim towards to improve the outcomes?
I recommend everyone advocate very heavily with our legislators ahead of the long legislative session about, so currently they're still writing the rules for accountability. They have set the metrics for 2930 that school districts need to meet. My recommendation is that everyone advocate heavily with our legislators about we're going to need some probably additional funding to really do some intentional work around students who are behind and getting them caught up. I continue to say asking school districts to meet those accountability targets with the same or less resources is not a viable solution.
And to expand on that too, so yes, the long session isn't until next year, but there's already committee work happening on a lot of topics like attendance and other things that the legislators looking at statutes and changes for that session. So I think it is incumbent, as Dr. Manal said, that we gear up for that, so to speak, and make sure that we're advocating not only for the budget, but all the other things that are likely to hit as either House bills or Senate bills. So it's going to be, I think, a focus not only on the accountability as the rules are getting all put together for that, but a lot of other topics in and around education. So
Always are.
I have a question. I guess to kind of revisit what David was talking about. We have 644 students that are below grade level, third grade at reading. 644. 411 are one grade below. 205 are 2 grades below. 138 students are 3 or more grade levels below. Now, the research I've been looking at, and I welcome any help on this, it would seem that we need to put some boots in the classroom, ESPs. Maybe if we targeted the third grade across the district with 9 ESPs that were full-time in the classrooms, maybe Abby can help us out a little bit there. She's got, what, 25 kids? 23.
It's averaging 23
23 right now? In an 800 square foot trailer. Is that right?
It's generous, but it's
With our current 100% free lunch and our demographics and our attendance, I mean, this is a really tough challenge, and I'm not attacking anybody, I'm just laying it out. I would think that finding some money, maybe $350,000 to target third graders so we get an ESP in each classroom. I don't know if that's possible, but I think that's the only way. I mean, I was looking at the Mississippi Miracle, and I don't know how that's working because they have 1 out of 4 students that are absent chronically in their school districts across the state. 1 out of 4. They played with the statistics, and this is conservative attacking conservative politicians in this state. I have some real concerns about Dr. Hattie's research and development, placing teacher efficacy number 1, and I'm a teacher and I believe in strong teachers in practice. However, to put class size down at about 122nd and 132nd is ridiculous when you have the kind of demographics that we have, the kind of poverty that we're faced with. We have to do something to help K through 3 teachers out, and I don't think volunteerism is going to get it done. We have some ESPs in this district that are very capable. I could be wrong on this, but it'd be about $350,000 for third grade ESPs, 1 in each classroom. But I just don't see how we're going to make any significant improvement when you have the kind of classrooms that we have where it's difficult to get kids in the classroom and they don't have that one-on-one. Navarro in 2015 found some real benefit to placing an ESP in the classroom. Now we need a new elementary school, but until we can show the district that we are transparent and have a plan, we have to have a wide base. And that base starts with K through 3. And if they're not reading by 4th grade, graduation rates are going to drop. Jail time's going to be increased. We lost a Division I athlete as a freshman here. And he ended up in state prison. And I had him in the class, couldn't read. Couldn't read a sentence. Kid was an outstanding football player, played as a freshman on the Dallas High School team. Was a state champion, wrestler at middle school, the toughest tournament in the state. And he couldn't read. Now, he came in from a school district in California. So, we didn't really have an opportunity to get him fixed. But I'm telling you, We have to do something to help these teachers out. And I think K through 3 should be a target. I think it's our greatest challenge as a district. I could be wrong. I welcome that. But it would seem that that would be a place to really look at and start building some boots on the ground in those elementary classrooms. I just don't see any other way. When you're asking teachers with 25 and 26 students in a classroom with these kind of literacy rates, it's just not, it doesn't compute. And the reading's going to carry over to math. If we can get them to read by 4th grade, and if we can get them to memorize their multiplication tables by 5th grade, it goes through the roof in terms of graduation rates. If we can't get that accomplished, and I've talked to some math teachers at the high school level, the multiplication tables are a base that need to get taken care of. Now, I could be wrong, and I welcome it. I'd like to see a magic pill, but this is looking more like Alice in Wonderland to me than, unless we get this solved. 644 kids at the 3rd grade. And what does that look like? K1 through 2. And then, in the summer, those kids that are below grade level are going to fall farther behind because they're going to lose that class time and that seat time.
Hey, Kramer, can I call for point of order so we can go back to the budget? Is that okay?
I thought this was the budget.
I don't know.
This is our greatest challenge, no doubt. And if we can't allocate some funds or find some means to address it, how are we?
Dr. Bernal, do you have any commentary on any of that?
Well, my mic died.
Do you want this one?
No, I think it was.
Yeah, okay.
I think what I would say is I don't think any of us on the leadership team disagree that we would love to have ESPs in every single classroom. Unfortunately, we have a pretty lean budget. We don't have a budget that affords us the luxury of just adding resources. So we're not in the position currently, but it's certainly not something that we're not discussing.
I think it'd be like $350,000 for 9 ESPs at the 3rd grade level, which would be a good time to do what we can to maybe build up some literacy in those grades. It would be 1.4 million K through 3, if my math is correct, but I'm not a real student in math.
If I may just expand on that, I'm just wondering if we can have conversation or get a little bit more information on the prioritization of expanding other programs versus investing in, say, like what Director Kramer is talking about of expanding ESP capabilities and ESP FTE.
What's the question?
Katie, you want to
Repeat.
state
What's
that
your
again?
question?
Well, the decision making, for instance, expanding the DLI program to 6th grade versus investing money into ESPs to support all the schools K through 3 with some additional ESP. Just hoping to walk us through the prioritization of that and other things that are being expanded.
So we actually have some data from our DLI programming that we have an overwhelming response from our dual immersion families that they want to see the program continue. They do not want it to stop at 5th grade. So we have 120 families in that program who want to see that program continue. It's also a very important program for our district. Having children that are bilingual and graduating with bilingualism is an important pillar for us in our district. So we made the decision to continue with the expansion of dual immersion.
This budget is fairly set because it's the second half of a biennium. Is that right? So, looking forward, I understand what Director Kramer is saying. Looking forward, can we work towards more ESPs? I know we're going to train our ESPs in how to do meeting intervention, and that they will be on the ground next year during the school year. And so we can actually kind of somewhat measure through our iReady and their, them being in that place, change to move in the needle, right? In literacy, how the kids are doing. And perhaps there's a way to move things around to add a few next year in the next budget cycle. And I also know, well, we're talking about including or going on with the intensive grant for another year, that there is a point where that sunsets too and that money goes away, so it gets even tighter then. Yeah. So I guess that's a general future, want more ASPs in the classroom, totally understand how that works. You know, reading is affected when you have someone in the moment helping you. Yeah, so we'll see.
I'd like to clarify the difference between a want and a need. I would think this is a need rather than a want.
I guess I'll just maybe expand, maybe a question after an answered question. 120 families represents a good portion of our students, but doesn't represent the whole. I understand that they want that program to continue, but my assumption, and I also could be wrong, and that is fine, that the middle school was ready to accept all of those students and had all of the resources in place, probably already planning for the school year with those bodies here. And I think what I heard from the last budget committee meeting was that there will be some sharing of resources from the middle school, so I don't know if that includes busing kids over for specials such as PE, music, etc., but that's additional cost that may not be warranted when there probably is like a great sense of collegiality to bring those students into the fold after they've been with only a small cohort of students for the last 5 to 6 years. There probably is benefit to that, and I understand those parents may want something specific, but is that the best for the whole?
So, respectfully, I think we're getting outside of the bounds of things that should be discussed in a budget committee meeting. I think, I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying, but I think that maybe a board work session or a board meeting is a more appropriate place to talk about these things. We're kind of, it's outside of the scope of the budget committee to add or delete programs or choose curriculum or develop policy. It's talking about the budget.
I understand that. I totally understand that. It seems a lot of times we're told that's outside of what we're here for, and respectfully, I feel like this is part of the budget committee decision to have discussions of transparency, accountability of taxpayer funds, and what is the best use of those resources and how they're allocated across the district. I think these conversations are appropriate.
Do we have any more questions about the federal grants?
I'm not sure if this is, if there should be a number in there or not, but sometimes like on, line, on page 137, line 113, there is an administrator, but there's no nothing in the column for what portion or percentage. And I didn't know if that was associated with, you know, your software that didn't pick up and allocate a person. But there's a lot of, you know, everything below it related to paying a person, so I wasn't sure. Also on the next page, line 111, you know, kind of like staff development. Is there a portion, is that one whole FTE or none, or should it be 0?
Yeah, it certainly looks like there should be at least a portion of an FTE there. The FTE system it's not what I would like it to be.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's, you know, substantial funding. It looks like it should probably be half a person. I'm not sure exactly what that would be. T2, so Title II improvement instructional services.
So maybe a
Portion of salary.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was, a portion of Dr. Ivy, probably.
And or an instructional coach.
Mhm. Pages and pages of line items that no longer function or exist. After that, all the ESSER funds.
Yeah, those are things that were in there from 3 years ago. So this section will disappear next year.
I noticed on page 159, the grant for after-school programs went up like 20%, so thank you, Feds. Is that what happened there?
So the grant is a different thing. You're looking at the expenditures.
Okay.
So the grant would be on the revenue side.
Yeah, the budget, I'm sorry, the budget went up 20%, sorry. Which, that's fine. Nothing
Yeah,
wrong with
I
that.
think originally, we were told that the grant, was only gonna be funded 80% next year. And then we just received news probably about a month ago that it's gonna be funded at 100%.
Great.
So in the summary on 164, the difference between current year and the budget is 12% upwards. So more federal inputs are hoped for by 12%.
Always.
Oh, what does that mean?
We always hope for more federal money.
Okay, there you go. Sometimes it doesn't materialize, right? Are we on to the state funds now? The early literacy grant, is that just expiring or running out? There was a drop there.
That's just the apportionment of the second
Okay.
portion of the grant.
Very good. Any other questions before I continue to ask mine? On the LTCT, long-term care and treatment. Where do we do long-term care and treatment?
So we currently have long-term care and treatment at the Innovations Academy. We partner with Trillium.
There you
and
go.
we provide those services. So that is for K-5
Thank you. I
students.
think you told us that before.
And then we also partner with the next door, and we have the Kelly Avenue School.
That's
And
right.
we're currently servicing kids in grades 6 to 12.
Great. The state, we got a state grant for a whopping, a really impressive $760,000 for 2 years from the state for after-school programs, which was a hefty sum for a district our size. So where would we see that here? And congratulations to just by the way, and those who wrote the grant?
So on page 165, in the summary page of summer school, so the proposed is 700,000. I don't think we knew at the time of printing that what we were actually getting.
Okay, there it is.
So that'll get updated. And at our next board meeting, I believe they're also doing a separate budget
Right.
to accept those funds.
Is the summer school still targeted to be interventionist? So is that a place where Director Kramer can know that children are getting that intensive work?
Yep.
Okay.
That is the target audience.
Yes, okay. So we have 2 years to do that?
We have 3.
3 years to do that, okay.
Two
To do
additional
some
summers.
intensive interventions during the summertime. Director Kramer, did you hear that?
Well, it's going to take a little more than that, I would think.
Sure.
644 kids we're looking at. That's just third grade.
And I bet you they may all qualify for the summer program.
And as I understand, our current policy doesn't force the students that are struggling to be retained for summer school.
No, but that is an interesting point.
I guess the question I have is, would we need it to the degree we do now if we were serving those children K through 3? That's the big question. That's a need, not a want.
In 180, on page 181, there's a missing temporary licensed body, that some percentage of the body goes there. There were a lot of NORCORs in there. I totaled the NORCORs, it costs about $552,000 to run the NORCOR program when you program and you add in all the bits and pieces. And is that entirely covered by the state? And can you explain that a little bit?
So we receive the JDEF dollars, and that's what helps us fund the portion that we were required, which we are the educational provider. That's our requirement. And so we're required to provide the services for the education of the students that are housed there.
If that program went away, would those dollars go away?
Yes.
I'm on local grants. Does anybody have any other state grant questions? I kind of call these opportunistic grants. They come up and we apply, like the wellness grant is like, I do have a question though about the Google donation contribution, 55 and then 163 and then 50 again. So I don't understand how that works.
So each year, we partner with Google every year. They come with different opportunities for us to apply for different pots of money. And so when there's the opportunity, we apply. We aren't always granted the dollars, but if we have specific things that meet the criteria that they're looking for, we apply. This past year, we applied for a larger sum to do our responsive classroom training. So that's why the number was higher this year, because they allocated more dollars to us this past year.
Do we have any plans for this coming year for that, to apply, or do you know what their
Well, we have
priorities
some
are?
dollars that we're going to carry, that we should be able to carry over. We won't know what those are until the books are closed. But if there's other opportunities, we certainly will apply.
Nice to have that available. And that's reflected down in page 189, some of that. Are we at the student investment account budget? Is this the intensive program? What is the difference between the intensive coaching and the student investment account? Is that just the one?
There are two different grants. The intensive coaching program is the program that we're in with ODE, where we get our stewards and pay for our vice principals at the elementary schools. Student investment account used to be part of the state school fund, but they carved it out and assigned it to specific purposes.
Okay. One of those specific purposes must be the dual language immersion program, because then that's on page 192, is that right?
That's a big chunk of it. You'll see some of those dollars spent at each of the elementary schools. Looks like we get to share some of that with our charter school as well.
Please remind me what a climate and culture coach does.
They are doing all of the responsive classroom coaching happening in all of our elementary schools.
How much would you say the responsive classroom program costs overall?
The training portion for all three schools was, I believe, around approximately 90,000.
What is service area direction on page 203?
That could that also be part of Dr. Abbey?
Yes, and or an instructional, potentially an instructional coach, yeah.
We have ESD instructional coaches.
That's probably Dr. Arden, yeah. Because it's an administrator. It's a weird name for it though, service area direction.
It should be, yeah, that would be maybe more fitting to have a different line item to describe that one. that is related to curriculum. Did we, before this grant, did we not have assistant principals at each school?
We had, they weren't assistant principals, they were deans of students. And they were TOSA positions, so teachers on special assignment.
Okay, so they were doing the role kind of pseudo. Okay.
Yes, but they weren't able to do the administrative part,
Right.
which is like the discipline side of things.
Okay.
Let's move on to high school success state grants. Everybody's
Is this a formula, how we get this? The high school success grant?
Yeah, this is like the student investment account. It used to be part of the state school fund, and they carved it out, Measure 98.
So only used for certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is HSS M98 INN? That's Innovation Academy Ultra Ed.
High school success, Measure 98, Innovations
Okay.
Academy, alternate education.
Who gets alternate? What's alternate education look like? Sorry.
Innovations Academy.
Just the-
Education program.
Just the whole thing right there. This fund was carved out of the, what was it?
The state school fund.
Okay, thanks.
And these dollars are to improve graduation rates and boost your career technical education and college readiness. So those dollars are supposed to be focused on funding dropout prevention, ninth grade on track efforts, and expanding your CTE program.
How on earth would you measure if it was working? I don't know. How would you know it was working, you know?
Well, part of the state performance growth targets are ninth grade on track, your graduation rates, and your 5-year computer rates.
Right.
So how you're allocating your dollars, if your rates are improving, then you know that your dollars are achieving the outcomes.
Ready to move on to vocational education fund? There's no more questions.
Why is this separate, Dan?
So this is a little bit of an odd one. My understanding is that we used to have a program where high school kids would go out and build things, and then we would sell it and use the profits to buy another property and build it, and so on and so forth. So you'll see the only revenue that's in here is beginning fund balance. So it's carryover and it's there to be used. Do we have CET teachers out right now? Or has been?
Yes. No. This is construction, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so if they have something that they want to use this money for, if it's an appropriate use, since they generated the money, then they'll have it available to them.
And I think, Director Amy, too, that I don't remember the year, we had kind of one last remaining residential property that the district owned. We surplused it and sold it. I believe the revenues from the sale of that property then went into the fund to keep it part of the vocational program.
And that would be used to help support the vocational program.
Correct.
Yes. Thank you. So, any other, I'm on enterprise zone project fund. Don't use enterprise number 2. I think that's an internal note for you. But still, enterprise zone 2, explain that.
That's more Google money, that's a tax abatement. They send us some cash. And again, it does not reduce our state school fund payments.
So kind of like the other fee, the $750, similarly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it looks like we have that mostly allocated to repair and maintenance capital projects around the district.
Right, yeah. Just nice to have. Student body account. So we do the accounting for the ASBs.
Yes, it all has to run through the district's books. So it's ASB money, so it's all supposed to be controlled by students and spent for the benefit of students.
Based on fees they collect, right?
Fees they collect, fundraisers. Contributions, yep.
If we had a large in-kind donation, how would that be reflected in the budget, or would it at all?
A large what?
Like in-kind, like we got the scoreboard last year, there's no recollection of that in the budget ever. It just comes and goes.
That's through the Boosters Club.
I'm on nutrition services, is anybody there? Sales are down, Dan.
Yes, they have a taco truck parked next to Innovations Academy.
Oh. Very practical. Okay, is that all? Just, that's the impact? I thought that was a barbecue place.
Yeah, changing tastes. I mean, I know with an open campus, it's hard to keep
Yeah.
high school kids on campus.
Yes. What kind of commodities do we get donated?
It's all through USDA. It's things like milk and cheese. My understanding is that this is usually a self-funding fund, self-maintaining fund. We don't have to put any general fund dollars into it because of federal reimbursement.
How does Sodexo fit into this part?
So Sodexo provides the manager for nutrition services. They also have chefs that provide recipes. They provide systems like our meal tracking. So in order to get reimbursed, we have to track the meals very accurately. They have quality control people who come out, and they also have a huge purchasing network that we benefit from. And they help with compliance. Nutrition services is hugely complicated,
Yeah.
and you have to do everything right. So they're very good at helping with compliance.
But we're also aware of the food quality.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about, we prefer home-cooked meals or scratch-cooked meals. There are challenges with that. It takes more staff, more training, more time, more equipment.
Debt service revenue funds budget. What are we debt servicing? What is going on here? Is this? Transfers, that's fine. Interest, services provided other funds, resource beginning those. Service provided other funds. What might those be?
Say again?
If you go to the next page,
Okay.
so it's the PERS bond.
Stop, there you go, thank you, turn the page. Yeah, so up 10% between last year and this year.
Yeah, so these are the only funds where they're not estimates. We have amortization schedules for these loans, so we know exactly what our principal interest payments are going to be. So we transfer money from the general fund to satisfy those obligations, and then when they come due, we pay them.
Thank you. Capital project funds, do we no longer do much in the rental business? Or we're just not counting on it?
We're not counting on it. I think a lot of that comes from public use agreements. And we have not been charging as much as we used to. Apparently, there's been some change. We're less generous about sharing our buildings with people because they don't always take care of them.
This is the budget where fixing the elevator comes from?
Say again?
Is this the budget, part of the budget where fixing the elevator comes from, repairing the roof on the high school comes from?
The capital projects fund?
Yes.
We could use those funds for things like that, yes. Yeah, capital improvements. So, I mean, that would be, like in the case of repairing the elevator, it would extend the useful life of the elevator. So that would be a capital improvement.
So with $150,000, it doesn't look like we can sustain any emergency situations.
No, we would have to dip into the general fund if we had major roof collapse or minor roof collapse.
Well, we have insurance too,
We do have insurance, yes.
maybe things like that, but
Yeah.
not elevators breaking.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, would you
Try to take that up maintenance budget first, if like that, or, I mean, it's a new elevator panel, is that maintenance or is that capital?
So something like that, I prefer to take it out of capital if I could. Because, I mean, there are certain things we can use these funds for. We can't use them for just regular maintenance. So,
might as well?
if it's something like if we're replacing a roof where it increases the useful life of the roof, that's a capital expenditure. If we're buying something that's going to go into our scheduled assets in the private sector, it would be depreciable.
Right. But not, yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? If there's no more questions, then I move to accept the 26-27 budget. I move that the proposed budget for North Wasco County School District 21 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2026 be approved in the aggregate amount of $64,896,163. I further move that ad valorem property taxes be levied at the rate of $5.2399 per $1,000 of taxable assessed value in support of the general fund. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
For all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? 2 nays.
Can you guys speak up so I can see who's a nay?
The motion passes with a 7-2 vote.
Everyone votes. Everyone votes. Yeah, so, I mean, not the budget.
Now we can adjourn the meeting.